Yeah. What zombie games?
I can put something on YouTube.
I did
You want to watch it too?
the sun got on the night.
Give everybody a few minutes to get here. Give everybody a few minutes to get here. In a couple minutes, we'll start talking about the Belmont and the undercard races and all that. Just give everybody a couple minutes to tune in and get here. Just go ahead and get the race ready. For the ones that's watching so far, I'll go ahead and say that I had Sir Winston in my video of the 5 horses that will not win the Belmont Stakes, and completely got that wrong. So if I cost you money, I'll go ahead and apologize for that. In just another minute, we'll get started. It was a good race. It let's see. I think everybody can agree this has been one of them crazy Triple Crown seasons. I think the craziest we probably had in recent memory. Maybe 2016 was probably the last one that might be on par as far as craziness goes. But we'll go ahead and get started. First, we'll watch the race. And it seemed like every race on the card was near about track record time for that day. And I look back at the Equibase race chart, and most every race seemed to be just about on or close to track record time. I think 1 or 2 of them broke it. So I think the fractions cutting out for the Belmont was real slow. Like, if y'all remember the first race on the card, a mile and 16th went under 141. It was blazing fast. So I think they said it was, if I remember right, it was 113 for the 6 furlong marker in this race. So they were basically crawling, which I know you got to give some of the pace dynamics. Being a mile and a half, they're going to go slower. But given the way the pace set up, I'm almost surprised that Joeva didn't wire the field. And then to top it off, Marconi went slower than that in the mile and a half race 2 races later. What do you want, buddy?
A game.
Give it here, Jackson.
Give it to mommy, okay? Yeah, the first couple races, I was like, oh man, it's going to be a big time speed favoring track. And that made me almost change kind of midday to do Joeva. And if you watch the 5 horses that will not win the Belmont Stakes video, that was the sole reason why I left Joeva off of there, because I could see that one scenario where everybody kind of sat off of him and just let him have his own way. And it just about happened. Let's see. War Will is kind of a tough horse to decide in a way, because I look back and at least in the last 7 or 8 years, Mark Cassidy hasn't ran a horse in the Belmont. I don't think he ever has. If he has somewhere, somebody wouldn't mind correcting me, but I didn't know how his horse was going to perform. Like some trainers, like Bob Baffert, they can run all 3 legs of the Triple Crown, and their horse do really good. Same with Dwayne Lucas. So I didn't know how Cassie was going to hold up. So I didn't really know what to do with him. I kind of played him out of respect, and after losing out on him in the Preakness, I didn't want to be caught having him beat me twice in a row. So I think I played him simply because I just wasn't going to let him beat me. But if you like Sir Winston, there was a lot of good things to like about him. Like if you look at we'll go to the Belmont track this for the Peter Pan.
Are you making that clown thing? What games?
The motorcycle.
I'm not going to keep going back and forth. You stick to one game.
I think a motorcycle.
It looked like towards the last part of the race that maybe
That one?
Sir Winston kind of ran over, and if Warwill had any chance after that little, with him and Tacitus and all that little bumping, that definitely sealed the fate right there. But if you go back to the Peter Pan, you look at Sir Winston at the mile marker, he was flying in that race, 39.1 miles an hour. The rest of these horses at 37.7, 37.4. And even at the 3/4 mark, he was, I'm sorry, at that one, but at the mile mark, at 37.7. So he was definitely making up some ground. I think the main reason why I went against him was I thought he might be too far out of it. And it seemed like the Belmont historically favors horses that are up close to the pace. So I couldn't go with him. I thought he'd be pace compromised a little bit, and that was his first race that he actually looked impressive. So
It's not working.
I just couldn't decide what to do with him.
It's not going to work.
But the whole day was just, the track was playing really, really fast.
You're going to have to watch it too.
And I think a couple of the divisions got solidified a little bit. So now the Triple Crown's over. What should I cover next? I was thinking elder horses are making the series like horse versus horse. I was kind of thinking the same thing yesterday because it's been a good ride for covering the Triple Crown, especially since I started this channel. And Sketchy, you got your horse channel, and it seems like after the Triple Crown, interest gets kind of lost in horse racing overall. But I would say there's enough good races coming up that you can, like you got the Stephen F. Foster next week, and you got 4 or 5 stakes races on that card, so maybe turn towards that. You got Saratoga opening up, like Seth Dominus said, which is that's one of my favorite tracks to cover for the year, is Saratoga. And you got the Haskell coming up, the Jim Dandy. Belmont's got another big day on I think the first week of July, where they run the Belmont Derby, the big turf race. And then you got the turf race, the Triple Crown. I can't remember what 3 races are considered for it off the top of my head, but it's supposed to be similar to the dirt Triple Crown. I think it ran in the same time frame and the same distances. But so there's going to be a lot of good stuff coming up to cover. So maybe just start switching to that. There shouldn't be a whole lot of, or there should be plenty of material to keep it going. Maybe you could add stuff like, I'm going to do a video tonight about what Omaha Beach have won the Triple Crown this year, because he got scratched before the Kentucky Derby, of course, and I think that's something that's going to draw some interest and maybe get. It's going to be one of those where I'll give my thoughts, but I really want people to comment on the video and give their thoughts, because it does raise a good question, because he got scratched for the Kentucky Derby, didn't really get his fair chance to run. So I wonder how everything could have been different if he would have ran in the Kentucky Derby. Would he have won? Would he have lost? So I'll have that video coming out tonight sometime, and we can talk about that. How I'm going to switch some of my material is I'm going to start gearing towards a Stephen F. Foster next week. It's ran on Saturday in the evening time. I believe they run the nighttime card on Saturday nights at Churchill. And the field should be finalized by Wednesday. And I'll cover that. You got the female race with that for the spot in the Breeders' Cup. The Fleur de Louise, and Elate's supposed to run in that, and I kind of question some of her ability coming into this year. She hasn't looked as impressive as she did last year. But I think the older filly division might have got solidified a little bit if you watch the Austin Phillips Stakes. We'll play that race real quick. And I made a good last minute change. I was thinking about going with Come Dancing all week, and then at the track I made the decision to go with Midnight Bisou once I started really watching some stuff more closely. So that was a good switch for me. That I didn't make a killing off of it, but I put a $20 win bet on Midnight Bisou, and it paid like 54, so it wasn't too bad of a bet to keep the day rolling along. But I like how Midnight Bisou just looked real comfortable and just kind of bided her time, and then when she made that move around the far turn, she just took over and started her class nicely. And I think this was the race that was in track record time. If not, then it was just a hair off of it. And then I think also Matoli solidified the sprint division for the older males. To me, he looks like he's got to be the top choice right now for the Breeders' Cup. I know you'll have some horses that come along that'll start running at Saratoga, Santa Anita. So I'm sure there'll be a couple other challengers that emerge, but right now I would say Matoli's got to be number one in the sprint division.
No, don't.
And maybe after the Met Mile, they might even consider him for the Dirt Mile. I believe Santa Anita is that a one-turn or two-turn mile race at the track? Does anybody know? I think it's 2 turns. Or is it Del Mar that's 2 turns? If it's a one-turn mile, I could see Matoli maybe stretching out to run in the Dirt Mile for the Breeders' Cup. If it's the 2-turn Dirt Mile, then I think he'll stay at the sprint distance. We'll play that race with Matoli. I thought McKenzie did good to be in traffic at the to be in real bad traffic at the end. I done a straight exact to Matoli over McKenzie, so I came out pretty good. I done a $20 exact and it paid $234, I think. Is it a $224 or $234? But for only spending $20, that was a nice little chunk of change I got for basically 2 favorites. But Matoli looked comfortable. I thought Santana gave Matoli a really good ride in this race. He didn't try to rush him. He just kind of waited and waited, and then around the turn he just accelerated. Which, given that he was stretching out, being a sprinter going a little bit further, you have to be impressed with how professional he looked on the effort. I thought promises fulfilled. I had said he was going to be a potential long shot pick in this race. I thought he was set to run one of his best races of the year. I think he's still finishing the Superfecta. But you'll see right here that Matoli's just waiting, and right about now is when he's going to start really being asked to go, and he just takes off. Then McKenzie gets stuck behind Thunder Snow. I've seen someone said that Thunder Snow, as crazy as it sounds, there was connections was basically using the Met Mile as a prep race to maybe run to get set up for the Breeders' Cup Classic. But to me, he ran a good enough race in the Met Mile to maybe he wants to go a little bit shorter distance. I don't know what to do with Thunder Snow just yet. But it was a good, nice race back. And probably the craziest race of the day had to be the Woody Stevens. If you go back in history, that's historically been a high-paying race. It's always, it don't ever seem to come in like it's supposed to. So I knew that this was going to be the race of the day, that if there was some money to be made, this was it. And well, I think the 10-cent Superfecta paid over $3,000. But I thought Strike Silver ran a really good race for cutting out the fractions he did. I think they went, 21 and change, then maybe 43 and change. Which I know the track was playing real fast for the day, so you gotta respect that. But still, given everything, I thought they went really fast. And if it wasn't, if they had took the 8 down on the inquiry, I would have hit the 3-6 exacta on the race. I kind of took some chances. I made a bunch of small bets that had potential for big payouts.
Mommy, I'm just under.
And it didn't work out, but I thought that maybe Hog Creek Hustle came over and took out Mind Control, which I'll go back and show that part of the race in just a second. But it was almost there for a potential for me to have a really big day, but I just missed out on it. But we'll go back to the part of the interference. You'll see Hog Creek Hustle coming up right here on the outside, and right about here he's going to start cutting over, and see right there he juts over. And to me it looked kind of similar to when they took Maximum Security down from the Kentucky Derby. I thought for sure after seeing the replay and stuff that he was coming down. They'd already took down one horse for basically doing the same thing. If not, maybe the horse they took down done less of a interference. It was in the second race. Yeah, it was in the second race of the day. So I figured if he was coming down, then I thought for sure Hog Creek Hustle was coming down. But what's y'all's thoughts on it? Do y'all think he should have came down or not? I'll go back and show the replay one more time. He's right here on the outside the 8, and he jets over, and see Mind Control has to steady real hard. But to me, in my eyes, that's kind of the same thing Maximum Security done in the Kentucky Derby, and he got taken down. So I thought maybe because I lost out on my big payday in the Kentucky Derby from the disqualification, And I thought, okay, maybe Hawk Creek Hustle's going to come down and I'll finally get revenge off the disqualification and finally have one go my way where I make a good sized payday. But still, I'd have made 600 off the if they'd have took him down, which 600 compared to 5,000 is not even in the same ballpark. But at least it would have been something. And I'll see if I can pull up the second race of the day, because I thought that horse they took down there didn't do near the same damage that Hawk Creek Hustle done.
Race 2 with Overlord, the first to go in.
Well, and it's going to be the one horse that causes the... No, I'm sorry, it's the third race. It was the third race. That's not even it. I thought Always Mining ran a disappointing race in there. To me, even though he didn't do good in the Preakness, it just looked like he stood over this field. But you'll see it's still Dreaming, the one horse on the inside, and down the stretch he's going to run over and cut off the number 3. And I'll see if I can speed it up a little bit. I actually done a 6-1 exacta because I had liked Still Dreaming because he had ran pretty good as a 2-year-old coming into his 3-year-old season, but then he didn't do much. But H-Gram Motion's been known to throw some long shots in there. But when Always Mining didn't fire, that messed everything up. But you'll see, I think right about here is when they start taking or have the disqualification. Trying to find exactly when it occurred. I know it was almost in deep stretch. But even there, I can't even really... You have to go to the head-on angle to be able to see it.
Mommy, I love you.
But you'll see it coming up. But you can see how this... Hey, I gotta make sure my live stream is working.
I'm going to eat ankle. I'm going to eat 2 ankles.
I think it's messing up again. Can y'all hear me? Am I live?
Is it working?
I think so. Okay, good. It was saying it wasn't working on my end, but I think maybe it cut out for just a minute. I don't know. But we'll go back to the 8th race. I wonder if we can see better from the head-on view, because I didn't get a chance to see it from that way. But from the other view, it sure looks like there should have been one. Let's see. Hopefully they give us that good head-on coming around the turn. But yeah, he clearly cut over in front of him. I don't know how they didn't take him down. It looks more obvious from the head-on view. But something about the DQs this year are just not going my way. Sammy, how much did you lose yesterday? Yes, I wonder that too. With War of Will and Sir Winston, because I seen War of Will take that little bump by Sir Winston, and I thought for sure there was going to be an inquiry on that race, but they didn't do anything. I was waiting for it, but I agree. I think with it being the same trainer, they chose not to even say anything or bring it up unless maybe the stewards would have brought it up. But I'm surprised that Belmont didn't bring it up, because Tacitus was kind of involved in that in a way. I'll go back and show it, and maybe it could have led to a better placing for him, unless he didn't want the backlash again from finishing second and getting bumped up to first by disqualification, so he kind of left it alone. I think that might have been a reason why he didn't say anything. But I'll try to get to that part of the race. Went too far. But you'll see Sir Winston's on the inside. He's coming down the middle. I got to find him real quick. He's right beside War of Will right now, but then he's going to jut over at the last minute right there and just completely cut him off. Not that I thought, even with that, I still don't think War of Will would have won. He obviously was starting to flatten out. But I can understand that. He was a tired horse, but it does make you wonder, why didn't they take a second look at that? And I'll go to the pan view. See if I can go back to that part of the race. But yeah, Vincent, I went with War of Will again too, just because I didn't want to have him beat me twice. Even though, like you, deep down I didn't have a whole lot of confidence in him. Which really, I didn't have a whole lot of confidence in what horse could step up and win the race. I thought the most upside had to be from Intrepid Heart because of the bloodline and maybe the potential of past history repeating itself. But you'll look right here, Sir Winston's on the inside. And then in just a minute, he's going to cut over to the outside. And Tacitus is the 10 right here. And you'll see that he's kind of doesn't take the brunt of it that War of Will did, but he's kind of involved to an extent. But see, but he was right there, so I'm just surprised that maybe Tacitus didn't try to, or Bill Mott or Jose Ortiz didn't try to bring up something and just to see if they could get that better placing with it. Because if you think about the Kentucky Derby, whenever Flavian Pratt brought up the DQ, it didn't really affect him. It affected Long Range Toddy, Bodie Express, War of Will, but he still brought it up just to try to get a better placing. So I'm just surprised they didn't do it twice. And I really think Bill Mott didn't want the backlash from saying, well, that's twice you've done that. But we'll go on to the Manhattan Stakes, and I think Bricks and Mortar has to be the number one horse in training right now. He is. This right here was my most surefire bet of the day. If there was one horse on the card I felt the most confident in, it has to be Bricks and Mortar. But we'll play that race. And actually, I think this was probably his most impressive race of the year. Even though he's undefeated this year, but I thought he overcame a lot of pace scenarios that went against him.
You were not supposed to.
And I think he's a horse that appreciates going a lot longer distances. He's been running, I think, it was a mile and an eighth, and he ran a mile and 3/16. So I think the longer the distances get, even the better he's going to be. And you didn't have some bad horses in here. I thought Corbin was a miler that was stretching out to a distance that probably wasn't going to suit him, even though he did pick up the services of Mike Smith. It didn't seem like a race that Mike Smith was going to win, in my opinion. I've done a 8-5 and a 8-7 straight exacta, just trying to look for some price plays underneath, hoping that, because Pletcher's been known to sneak some high turf horses in the money, and then the 7 horse was another Chad Brown horse that Kendrick Harmouche was on, and I thought he might have got overlooked a little bit, but I was just trying to look for some value plays. I didn't spend a whole lot of money on the race. But yeah, Vincent, I agree. I think that's the sole reason why he didn't bother to do the DQ again, because he didn't want the backlash from that. But I was sitting there waiting for the inquiry sign to come up, which me and my friends at the track, we were joking all day. If it had been Churchill, they'd have took him down. But it wouldn't have mattered anyways for me. Maybe it would have helped with my 5 horses that won't win video. I wouldn't have been as embarrassed by that one. That's about all I would have got out of it. But no money would have came in my direction.
I'm trying to build this one. I got the pictures of it.
But you can say we'll get back to this race, and Bricks and Mortar just by far has to be the best horse in training right now. Turf, dirt, older horse, maybe you can make a case with Matoli. I think he's lights out right now, but Bricks and Mortar, I think, has just a little bit better overall track record. And I think he solidified the older horse turf division. And I wouldn't be surprised if he went on to win the Breeders' Cup. I can't think of any horses off the top of my head who would be favored over him right now. But it is horse racing, and you never know who's going to win. Then we'll look at the Japir. And I think this race solidified World of Trouble as the top sprinter right now. And this race was one of those where I had the winner, but how I played it at the day was I done a 8-6 exacta and then an 8-7 exacta, because I thought those were the 2 most likely candidates to finish behind World of Trouble, because you weren't going to make no money off 2 to 5 on the win bet. And then of course I done some couple of dollars straight superfectas like 8-7-2, I think 8-7-2-3 and like 8-7-2-5, just trying to play around with some different things. But right here it looked like I thought I was in good shape. You had World of Trouble up front, and the 7 was right there. But then Ohm just kept coming and kept coming. Which I know he was a miler that was turning back in distance, so that was a good angle. But I really thought the 7 was going to be the better of the 2. And if you look, you'll see that it looked like Ohm kind of fell back for just a second, then he made a run on again. I'll go back to that part of the race. But you'll see him charge forward, and then he will kind of go back. Like right here, I think he actually gets up in the 2nd, if I remember right. If it wasn't 2nd, it was very, very close to it. But yeah, see, he gets up in the second, and then he starts going back, and I was like, okay, I'm good. Ohm's done, because usually when you see horses start falling back like that, you think that they're done. Which every once in a while, one like Ohm will come back, but then he started going again, which I didn't even really see him in real time coming up. I seen the 6, but then Ohm just kind of snuck through there on the rail. But I wonder if the 7 maybe made his move a little too early. But I still think World of Trouble asserted himself as the class of the turf sprint division. We'll look at the Longines just the game stakes. And this one, I still don't have the. I think this potential division is still wide open. I'm not, even though Rushing Fall won, I wouldn't say she's the
You can't. That goes to your
clear-cut favorite in the division. I still got my doubts against her, because I think she's caught some good pace setups in all of her races. But I do think she took that step forward off of here that I was looking for. Before the race started, I was going to do a 4-3 and a 4-7 exacta, but then they scratched the 7, so it kind of made it a slam dunk race for me, 4-3. And I got a little nervous for a minute because Bo Recalls at the back is just waiting and waiting, which I know he's a closer, so he's right where he wants to be. But then you start getting around the turn, and he's still back there, and I'm like, okay, you need to start making your move now. But luckily, he gets up there just in time. And he kind of came out of the clouds a little bit, which the way they were showing the angle of it, you couldn't really see the 3 come up until like the very last minute. I had to follow the little 3 on the little trackless icon to be able to kind of see him running up. But I knew he was going to make his run. I was just wondering if he had enough time with it. But if he makes his run just a little bit sooner, you can make a case that maybe he could have won this race, because he was rolling at the end. Finished about 2.5, maybe 3 lengths at the most behind. So I just wonder if it was a good ride to get second, but the way he was rolling, I kind of think it was a bad ride. If the jockey would have broke him sooner, maybe he sneaks in there and gets first, or at least makes it closer at the wire than what it is. But the whole race card seemed like it was good to make money. I hit on over probably about half of the card. I had them races like the Japir where I picked the wrong horse to come in second, and the Manhattan, but other than the Woody Stevens, everything else kind of went basically how it was supposed to be ran. I was really disappointed always Mining's easy goer effort, and that race went slower than the race number 1 on the card, and I didn't think much of the races racing in the race 1 of the day. So I would say all them horses that raced in the 3rd race, they're going to have to make some big time improvements just to be a factor in the 3-year-old division. But we'll go ahead and start looking on towards next Saturday a little bit, see some of the probable fields. Oh wow, Sadler Shipper gift box joins Stephen Foster Field. That's a big get for him. So maybe that'll add some sort of clarity to it. But we'll look up real quick and see who's in the field. You got the Matt win that day, the Fleur de Louise, and so you got You got gift box. Yeah. So you got gift box. Then you got Yoshida, who's running. He hadn't ran since since the Pegasus day. So he's an interesting pick. There's no telling how he's gonna respond. Hang on, buddy. So there's no telling how he's gonna respond. You never know with these horses coming off a layoff. Some of them will come back and do good, and some of them they're not the same when they come back. So it's gonna be interesting to see how Yoshida does. But it would be nice for the older division to see him come back good and maybe solidify some of the division, because that's the only division that's lacking star power. You got everything else is good this year. The turf sprint division's good. The older turf male division's good. The male sprint division's good. The older female division's good. Everything's good. Even the 3-year-old division has enough chaos going on to be good right now. But the older males is the only division that is there's nothing that excites me with that division right now. What's the next big race for you? I'm going to cover the Stephen Foster this week, and I'll cover the Matt Wynn. I'll probably prioritize the Stephen Foster and the Florida Louise, but just because those are Breeders' Cup entry races. And of course the Matt Wynn is usually a prep race for the 3-year-olds on to maybe the Travers or Haskell or something like that. But I'll cover those 2 or 3 races throughout the week. It'd just be nice to maybe see some clarity come in the older horse division, and I think Yoshida could provide that by stepping up and winning the Stephen Foster. Or Guinevere is still due to come back and race at some time. Maybe he'll come back and be a good playmaking 5-year-old horse this year. So he would come back and offer some clarity to the division that has no clear-cut favorite right now. Which personally I think the 3-year-old is going to end up winning the Breeders' Cup this year. Maybe Omaha Beach, I have to see how he comes back and does when he gets back in training. But you never know. But the field's looking decent. Seeking the Soul's always a consistent horse. I tried to do the live stream yesterday, and I right before the 3rd race, I pulled it up on my phone, but right when I done it, it said my phone wouldn't let me do it. So I tried, but it just wouldn't let me for the day. I'll try to figure out something next time. Maybe I could get a computer up there or something. Which, if I'd have been at home with it, I could have done it easily, but I went to the track, so sorry I couldn't do it for you. I really did try, but it just, my phone wouldn't let me do it. But I will be doing a live stream before the Stephen Foster day on Saturday, and we'll go through some picks and stuff. And I'll be at home for that. If I bet the race, it'll be off of TVG or something, so it'll be a lot easier to do that day. But Truman, sorry I couldn't do it for you. I really did try. Yeah, Joeva, that was why I left him off of the 5 horses that won't win video, because I seen that scenario where he could come through and run a big race, and he got the scenario, he just didn't back it up with the win. But what do y'all think about Sir Winston going forward? Because he ran that really good race in the Peter Pan to come up and get second, and he won the Belmont. Do y'all think that's a one-time thing, or does he take the step forward and become a factor in the division? As I still think I need to see one more good race from him before I really get some confidence in him. Maybe he has taken that corner and turned into good horse. But if you watched him on the prep trail throughout the year, he didn't do much at all. He always came from the clouds and would get third, fourth, or fifth, but nothing ever struck confidence that he could be a factor in it. But I did notice, and I was telling my friends at the track yesterday, that in the Manhattan, it's always been before the Belmont, and one of those two races every year always has a long shot. Either the Manhattan, the favorite, wins, and the long shot happens in the Belmont, or the long shot, either one or the other has a long shot. It's never been favorite. So when Bricks and Mortar won the Manhattan, in the back of my mind, I was like, well, if you go off history, this sets up for a long shot to win the Belmont. And I found that out because I was going to do a video about doing a daily double instead of a win bet for the Belmont with Bricks and Mortar, because I thought he was the best bet of the day, and trying to prove a point about getting some value. And then when I started going back through the charts to find the results, that's when I noticed that. So maybe next year, look and see if either a long shot will win the Manhattan or a long shot will win the Belmont. Maybe try that angle. But we'll go back to go on to the Matt Win real quick. Just off the top of my head, Mr. Money's got to look like the potentially heavy favorite in that race. He won on the Kentucky Derby Day on the undercard, the Pat Day Mile. He won that very decisively. And the second place finisher did come back to win the Woody Stevens. So I think Mr. Money has to look really good. Signal Man and Knicks Go. I think their best days might be getting behind them. Armistice Day. Don't really know much about him right now. Just based on the races I see, he's done nothing to give me confidence so far. But I'm sure there'll be more than 4 horses by the time they come out. And we'll look at the Fleur de Lis. And I think it was Red Ruby who I was looking at. I'm going to do some further research as the week goes on. And she did win the Delaware Oaks and the Black Eyed Susan Stakes back in 2018. So there could be potential there for her to come back and maybe do something. I'll have to look closely. A lot of this right now is just kind of off the top of my head. I haven't fully turned my attention towards these races yet, which I'll start doing that tomorrow, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So when I do the live stream again, I'll have a better idea of analysis. But it looks like it should be a good night. Whenever I did the live stream that day, do y'all want me to cover some of the other undercard races, like go through the whole card, or just the stakes races? Like, what do y'all care about? I'll work on doing the whole card and try to get through it by Saturday. But I'm about to sign off now, guys. Thank y'all for watching. If I changed any of y'all's minds about Sir Winston, I do apologize for that. It's been kind of a slump this Triple Crown season. Ever since the Derby disqualification took my payday from me, it seems like the luck hasn't been on my side this year. But last year was so good. I had enough confidence where I could go to the track and just knew I was going to cash in on a big race and leave. And even the year before that, but this year, I guess it's like baseball. You're going to go through slumps. So I'm sure all y'all have at some point went through slumps where you're not cashing in tickets like you should. which I haven't done terrible. I haven't really came out on the losing side much. I just haven't had my big paydays like I did last year. But it'll turn around. I do thank y'all for watching. And I'll do my video about Omaha Beach tonight. And y'all should have fun being able to talk about him. Thanks, guys.